Pentagon is coming to WWE, allegedly, with a new audience being able to watch the arm-snapping luchador tear through opposition while chanting Cero Miedo, Zero Fear. Zero fear of generic local jobber 3. Yeah, bit weird that, right? Why would he need to emphasise he has zero fear in such a match? He and everyone in the audience knew there was nothing to fear before the bell even rung. Unless it's not just a middle finger and taunt towards his opponent, and instead also directed at something much, much darker. Welcome to the Curse of Pentagon. If the name doesn't give it away, Pentagon Jr. isn't the first man to wrestle under the gimmick. According to Wikipedia, he's the 8th. Personally, I can think of 2 more, and Cage Match lists it as high as 14 different workers, the true number likely significantly larger. The gimmick came about through AAA founder and booker Antonio Pena, wanting to create an evil twin to help elevate Octagon, with us all knowing that Pentagons are the most evil of shapes. There was already a sense of unease and tragedy around Octagon and AAA, as prior to this, Octagon's last major feud was teaming with El Hijo del Santo against Los Gringos Locos, specifically the team of Eddie Guerrero and Art Bar. The two teams would feud over the inaugural AAA Tag Championships, with Octagon and Santo winning the first bout before Los Gringos won this rematch through underhanded tactics. This all led to a match in Worlds Collide, the first ever Mexican wrestling pay-per-view, where rather than the belts being on the line, the two teams wagered something much more important: their masks and hair in a double Lucha de Apuestas match, in what was at the time acclaimed as one of the greatest tag matches of all time, receiving 5 stars from Dave Meltzer. El Hijo del Santo pinned Eddie for the final fall. The assumption from fans was that the match would be run back one more time with the tag belts on the line. But unfortunately, just over 2 weeks later, Art Bar would tragically be found dead in his home. The tag belts were vacated and new champs were never crowned. AAA had gone from one of its greatest nights in their history to one of the saddest almost overnight, and needed to move on. As mentioned, following this feud, the next major battle would be against Pentagon, an evil mirror version of everyone's favourite Mexican ninja named after a Chuck Norris film. Jesus Andrade Salas, a Mexican veteran with over 20 years' experience under his belt, was picked to wear the mask. Throughout 1995 and early 1996, the pair would battle through proxy wars, via tag battles where neither man was involved in the finish, or through their mini counterparts, Octagoncito and Pentagoncito. With the feud building for over a year, the quality of work Octagon was capable of, and the experience of Pentagon, it was hoped the pair would have an incredible match when that time came. Unfortunately, that time never came. On the 6th of March 1996, a trios match pitting Octagon, Rey Mysterio Jr. and La Parka against Psychosis, Pifaroff Jr. and Pentagon ended in tragedy. La Parka threw Pentagon into the air during a routine backdrop body drop. While in the air, Pentagon ducked his head too far, exposing his neck. To fans in the audience and watching at home, it looked like a regular spot. But Pentagon didn't get up. The refs began their 10 count, and La Parka was the first to realise something was wrong. Clearly untrained in handling potential neck injuries, La Parka sat up Pentagon while pretending to beat down his opponent. In reality, he was trying to check on him and make sure he was okay. No response. The former WCW chairman laid down his opponent, slapped him on the face before dragging him to the ropes, where the reality of the situation suddenly hit everyone. Parker attempted CPR while waving for help from the back. Octagon ran to the other side of the ring with the other wrestlers to check on his kayfabe arch-rival, holding on to Pentagon as the other wrestlers cleared the ring, the Parker being dragged away by his teammates. A referee tried to monitor his breathing, and finally, after what seemed like an hour, but was in reality only a few minutes, medical staff with a stretcher came to take Pentagon away. Jesus Andrade Salas had lost his life in the ring, and AAA being AAA, aired the footage on multiple shows to drum up attention. Stay classy, AAA. When landing from a back body drop, Pentagon's cervical and spinal cord collided, causing cardiorespiratory arrest. Despite the seemingly internal wait from fans watching, he was rushed to the hospital almost immediately. While in the ambulance, CPR was attempted and failed. Upon reaching the hospital, defibrillators, in combination with CPR, managed to bring him back to life after 8 minutes of trying. Despite surviving, this wasn't the end of Andrade's ordeal. With him admitting during his hospital stay, he repeatedly had thoughts about, and on one occasion even attempted, to unalive himself. Despite these struggles, Andrade went through what can only be described as a miracle. As not only was he resurrected from the dead, he was somehow walking again after just 2 months. While he first struggled to adapt, returning to a normal life, he would find peace and success, becoming a biblical man, travelling to arenas, sharing his story with wrestlers and fans alike, while also focusing on his family's wrestling training school. With the El Moro family still continuing the business to this day, through the likes of Jesus Andrade Salas' son, Espanto Jr., fellow CMLL worker, Brillante Jr., and likely most well known to you, WWE's Andrade, as well as a number of others. The second major event associated with the curse involves Pentagoncito. Now, many people have played Pentagoncito with little success, with the character being set up exclusively to rival Octagoncito, who exists purely to make more money on the Octagon name. We know 2 people who have played the role: Juan Andrade Salas, the younger brother of the original Pentagon, and Bernabe Garcia. We know little about Garcia and what really happened beyond an interview he gave upon his release from jail and the return to the ring. If anyone happens to live in Mexico or speaks Spanish and would be able to get more information on this case, that would be incredible. But what we do know is Garcia's brother was murdered, with a witness accusing Bernabe of the crime. Bernabe proclaimed his innocence, with him suggesting a portrait based on a witness's description was never produced, and suspects whose blood was at the crime scene were released, with his only knowledge of what happened having to be pieced together from reading the crime report while incarcerated. He was originally only sentenced to 7 years in jail, but appealed, being provided a lawyer by AAA. Garcia claims the lawyer was incompetent and ill-prepared, to the point he was insulted by the judge, and after the appeal was sentenced to an extra 20 years. We do not know much about his release beyond it happened in 2010. While it's hard to say if Garcia was guilty or innocent of murder through exclusively his own testimonies, what we can say is that 2 more lives have been associated with Pentagon and its curse. The rest of the people to wear the mask didn't really face a horrible fate, or on that note, accomplish anything of note, with the belief that the gimmick just heavily limited the performer. Following the original Pentagon, Jesus Andrade Salas' retirement, the man under the mask was quietly replaced with Jose Mercado Lopez, who prior to Pentagon Jr. is the most successful man to wear the mask. At one time competing on WWF TV, being the only one to hold a title, beating Octagon for the Mexican National Championship, which he would hold for over a year, and at one point even turning face and teaming with his arch-rival. Although he would admittedly leave on a whimper, getting a double count-out in a low-card match before changing his mask and name to Pentagon Dark so AAA couldn't sue him and went for a run in Japan. He spent the rest of his career as a low-card guy, taking pins and jumping from gimmick to gimmick, including another Pentagon ripoff in Pentagon Viper. The rest of the Pentas follow a similar story to the end of Pentagon 2's career, where they achieved little. Pentagon 3 existed purely for Octagon to finally demask and then shave the head of his rival to put the story to bed, while characters like Lady Pentagon never even wrestled a match. While they never had death associated with them, all their careers died with little fanfare. This leads us to the current Penta. In October 2012, Samurai Del Sol, who you might know better as former 2-time WWE US Champion Kalisto, was made Octagon Jr., the next generation of the Octagon gimmick, and of course, if they have a new Octagon, they needed a new Pentagon. AAA offered the opportunity to a man at the time going by the name Dark Dragon. Dragon was encouraged by other wrestlers not to take on the gimmick, due to its supposed curse making it a career killer. with it being outdated, the fact it traps you as nothing more as a shadow of Octagon, and of course, the 3 associated tragedies. Despite this, Dark Dragon accepted the role as Pentagon Jr. Instead of fearing the curse and the potential it could stifle his career, the new Penta leaned into the gimmick, creating a darker persona, transitioning the mask from a ninja to a darker skeletal look, and mocking the curse with the defiant chant of Zero Miedo. With him going on to win gold all over Mexico and the States, finally the curse has been broken. Right? Well, it's too soon to say, but I'd like to hope Pentagon Jr.'s career doesn't die out anytime too soon, although the curse is seemingly trying to. Right now, the news of the Lucha Bros having their contracts extended due to injury preventing them from joining WWE is fresh on your minds, stopping the pair from signing new deals or being able to wrestle and keep their names relevant. While it sucks and delays their career, it's hard to say this is their career being killed. But it's not the first time contracts have tried to screw over the new Pentagon. Many of you may notice that Pentagon Jr. isn't spelt like this, and this is due to AAA owning the name. I mentioned earlier how Pentagon 2 changed its name to Pentagon Dark and Pentagon Viper to keep the character despite AAA owning it, and this is a similar situation. The only difference is Penta and Phoenix thought they would be allowed to keep their names and the Los Perros faction name they represented when they left AAA. AAA made sure they couldn't. Thankfully, they found a workaround, but had they not, losing all their reputation they built into those gimmicks could have seen their careers collapse as they'd have to start anew. It's almost as bad as that time they signed up to Lucha Underground on exclusive deals, so they couldn't work elsewhere. Problem was, Lucha Underground went bust and stopped running shows, so workers couldn't make money working for them, but legally couldn't work elsewhere. Now, the issue was resolved and all the talent were let free from their deals, but not being able to wrestle for years and needing to get a day job to survive probably wouldn't have done them any wonders. Now, I'm not saying the curse is affecting the current Penta, but I will suggest he gets a lawyer to read the next contract he's given, rather than signing it blindly with Zero Miedo.